Well, he's sure not sorry. President Obama says he is not apologizing for his latest power grab, and he's even promising more. Just hours ago, President Obama urging his cabinet to find creative ways to use more executive actions. Our political panel is here. The Weekly Standard's Don McCormick and News Political Director at ABC, Rick Klein, and Washington Examiner Chief Political Correspondent Byron York. Byron, he's going to grab more. He says he wants to.
This is such an election year ploy. I mean, how many times have presidents campaigned against a do-nothing Congress? So this is the president's version of that, and he has taken action on immigration in the past. He's taken action on the environment in the past with the EPA. He comes out in the Rose Garden yesterday, and you have this big crisis building on the border with all these unaccompanied children crossing. He spends a couple of paragraphs on that, and the rest of the time he talks about how he can bypass this do-nothing Congress. The president is campaigning with this stuff.
All right, Rick, one of the things that he says is that today he says that Speaker Boehner has sued him. That hasn't happened. He's been threatened.
He's threatening.
He's been threatened, but he has not been sued. Is the president finding himself in this position? Is he to take any responsibility for the fact that he can't work with the House?
It's an inflection point in that this is the end of the legislative agenda that the president can hope to push. He's got 2.5 years left, and there will be a lot of finger pointing in both directions about whose fault it is that he can't get anything else done. But that is no longer a viable track. He recognizes that. And I think, if anything, it seems to validate what Boehner is saying about the lawsuit, to at least have the House of Representatives and the Congress put a marker down and say, we're not going to allow this to go unfettered. Look, if the president's going to be looking at all his options, you can expect that the Congress would want to look at all its options to restrain what the president is doing. So, I think it's a long time coming to this point of frustration. I think Byron's right. There's a lot of election year politics. There's also a rapidly shrinking window of actually achieving policy objectives. And I think that's why he's telling his cabinet secretaries very clearly on the record, right there on camera, saying, go do what we can do.
Is it choreographed, John? And who's got the American people? Is it the president saying he's got all this executive power and he's going to do it? He's directing his cabinet to do it? Or is it the House Republicans saying he's going too far?
Well, I think he's clearly given up on any legislation coming out of this Congress with the House controlled by Republicans.
But does he have the people with him?
It depends. I think right now what he's hoping to do is he's lost the middle and he's trying to gin up his base. As Byron said, he's campaigning. He's tossing out something to all the different parts of his base. There's something on immigration. I'm guessing you're going to see something in response to this Hobby Lobby ruling on contraception to get the young women's vote out. The EPA regulations, and recently the administration has paved the way for sex change operations under Medicare. So he's got the gay rights issue on there. I think that he really is going to go and just try and get the base out in 14. I think he's given up on the center. He knows that they're turned off by Obamacare. He's going for a base election.
Is he going to will he touch Obamacare at all? I mean, to talk about the Hobby Lobby, I would imagine he wouldn't touch Obamacare.
I don't think. Well, first of all, he's touched Obamacare a lot.
I didn't mean to suggest he hadn't.
He has changed a lot of parts of Obamacare, but you will not see him, I think, reacting to any sort of the greater criticisms of it. There is an institutional issue involved, and I'm surprised that there aren't some Democrats in Congress who are expressing a little bit of concern about the president doing this. Some Democrats who might say, setting our immigration laws is the sole responsibility, authority of the U.S. Congress. And if we're not going to do it, the president cannot do it himself. I'm surprised there's no institutional pride in Congress on this.
But where is the line? Rick, President Truman desegregated the military with an executive order. I mean, the executive orders are used by all these presidents.
The Emancipation Proclamation.
A lot of things are done by executive orders. And, so where's the line?
I think the president seems like he's going to go find it. I mean, he's going to do whatever he can do right up to that line. I think he's been explicit about that. And look, we saw President Bush take a lot of flack from the left for expanding executive authority, for using executive orders to try to do more things. And I think the president has cast his lot in a similar direction in terms of power in the executive branch. And I think the lawsuit will be a check on him. And I think that he is going to be looking for ways that he can go as close as he can go to areas that have traditionally been filled by the Congress.
John, is he looking strong to the American people and assertive like an executive? Or is he looking like he's flailing and he can't work with Congress? He doesn't even play golf with them. He doesn't do anything with them. He can't stand to see them. He doesn't like them.
I think he's looking like he's trying to get whatever he can that the courts won't stop him from getting, or that the American people won't certainly elect a Republican in 2016. Those are the only two constraints on him, is how much he cares about his legacy being lost by losing the White House in 2016, and whether the courts will just smack him down again as they did in the separation of powers case recently, and the religious liberty case, where the court said you overstep your bounds in both cases.
Who's winning, the president or the people or the Congress?
So far, the president is winning, and Congress will have to assert itself. It does have the power of the purse. It could assert itself that way, or it can go to court. But you have these built-in conflicts between the executive and the legislative, and they are always pushing at each other. And right now, the president is pushing harder and farther.
All right, panel, stay with us. Well, you can add today's orders to his cabinet to a long list of President Obama's declarations that he will bypass Congress. Take a look.
If Congress can't act on core issues that would actually make a difference, we're going to have to be creative about how we can make real progress.
Executive orders do not grant authoritarian dictatorial power.
I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and that's all I need.
He may have a pen and a phone, but we have a Constitution.
Where Congress won't act, I will.
This is imperial power. This is George III.
It's not crazy. It's not socialism. It's not the imperial presidency.
This is truly the imperial presidency. Sure. The president wants to just, be king for a day.
They criticized me for this. Boehner sued me for this. So sue me. As long as they're doing nothing, I'm not going to apologize for trying to do something.
And RNC Chair Reince Priebus joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
Hey, Greta.
Okay, so what are the American people saying? You travel the country. I know you talk to mostly Republicans or almost all Republicans, but power grab or a strong, assertive president?
Well, I think certainly a power grab. And when you tell your cabinet members that I want you to find ways in order to circumvent the Constitution, the president's forgetting about the fact that the entire basis of this Constitution that made this great country is that the power vests in we the people. And he's forgetting about that. And so
he says he says he's entitled to it. Everybody else did.
Well, look, but the president takes the cake, though. I mean, he takes the blue ribbon. I mean, he's been struck down over 13 times in the past 2 years by the Supreme Court, saying that you are overextending your power, that you're not respecting Article 1 of the Constitution, which grants the power to the House, and the Senate. And so, look, what this president is doing, I think, flies in the face of the foundation of what the basis is of the Constitution. I think John Boehner is absolutely right in his lawsuit against this president. And I do think he's got standing. I think if any person in America, and I understand the injury argument, we're both lawyers, but as Speaker of the House, as the person who's directing traffic in Congress and passing, in regard to passing these laws, it's his job and his responsibility, and the president wants to be president, he wants to be Speaker of the House, he wants to be Majority Leader of the Senate, and he wants to be the court.
Well, he also wants to be the court because he criticizes the Supreme Court all the time. I mean, he certainly does that, and he got his, basically he got slapped down handsomely last week with 290 decisions against him. But here's what I think. I think the president, when in the first 2 weeks he was president, the first term, he said, I think it was either to Majority Leader Cantor or to Senator John McCain, he says, I won in a debate. And I thought he set the tone there.
You lost,
I won, you lost. That he had no intention of working and realizing that you really have to work with Congress. It's not just one branch of government. But I thought that was that foreshadowed everything. And he declared war.
For a constitutional law professor, he certainly forgot about the separation of powers doctrine, which is the most basic junior high,
but that was
high school
a declaration of war.
Concept. But listen, and there was one of the folks in the panel said that some of this stuff's a ploy. I don't think it's a ploy. I think actually he intends to try to change the laws of this country on his own. I think he envisions himself in having that kind of power. And I think he's going to be as cute and as clever as he possibly can to do it. And you look at what he's done already on immigration. I mean, so he's gone forward with all these executive actions. He's given all these speeches. And we got the biggest border crisis that we've had on the border than all of us can remember. This is the result of the Obama doctrine.
Well, what's taken, if Speaker Boehner says that he has a good, strong lawsuit and that he's going to do this, why hasn't he? I mean, where is he? Why hasn't he?
I'm not filing his papers, but I certainly think that there really is no other option with this president. He doesn't want to work with Congress. He wants to write the laws with the pen and his telephone, as he's threatened the American people. And he obviously doesn't respect the foundation of the Constitution. So what else can you do? Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, he filed a lawsuit against the president's overreach.
But these lawsuits linger.
Well,
I mean, it would be so
linger,
much better. It would be so much better if they would just talk to each other for starters.
But you have to have a president that actually wants to sit down and bang some heads together and get something done. Other presidents have been able to do it. So it's not like this is something that suddenly occurred.
he says the Republicans won't work with him, and I think the best example is that President Clinton, who did get things done, they were trying to throw him out of office, and he was still working with them.
Well, one of the things that Newt Gingrich did, and one of the things that I think President Clinton did, was make sure that whatever they were doing was very public. You might remember every day out of the White House when Newt Gingrich would leave, he'd have a press conference right outside the White House every single day. This is a different world. This is a president that views his presidency more as a kingship than it does as bound by Article 2 of the Constitution. And he should read Article 2 of the Constitution. He can find out right then and there what his powers are.
Mr. Chairman, nice to see you, sir.
All right, thank you.
And our next guest says the Obama White House is worse than the Nixon administration when it comes to transparency. The Washington Times' Jeffrey Scott Shapiro joins us. Nice to see you. Okay, worse than the Nixon administration?
I think so. I think that this memo proves
What memo?
There was a memo that White House lawyers sent out only 3 months after Barack Obama took office and promised to have the most transparent administration in history. And it was a memo that essentially White House counsel sent out to lawyers in every executive agency in the federal government, hijacking, if you will, the Freedom of Information Act away from federal agencies that are subject to FOIA, putting it under the sole dominion of the White House, which is exempt from FOIA, giving the White House their cake and eating it too.
Well, it's certainly one of the most stunning things I've heard is a couple weeks ago, an interview with Jill Abramson, who was then at the New York Times. And as head of the New York Times, she said that this administration, and she covered a bunch of administrations here in Washington, she said that it is the most secretive.
It is the most secretive, and the organization that originally uncovered some of this material, Cause of Action, they're an accountability group here in Washington, they've done studies and they've determined that the Obama administration really seems to have a grip on executive power more than any administration in history. They understand executive power and privilege, and they know how to expand it. And through this memo, they have done that. They have gone around Congress, and they have commandeered the Freedom of Information Act away from the American people and from the federal agencies that owe the American people information and federally requested documents.
I think you default into the fact that this administration, I think, has prosecuted more leaks and has gone after journalists, including my colleague James Rosen. So that they've gone really far to try to control the message, including terrible things that were said about James Rosen in their pleadings.
Greta, if you saw some of the emails that I saw where lawyers and FOIA workers from other agencies were sending emails to one another saying, I'm concerned that maybe this document implicates these White House equities, an imaginary Orwellian phrase that the White House essentially made up so that they could redesign it to have any meaning they want, whenever they want. You could tell that there was a chilling effect, that there was a sense of fear, that they wanted to check with White House counsel on everything that could possibly embarrass the president so that they don't get into trouble, so they don't lose their jobs or get prosecuted.
All right, Greg Craig, though, who wrote that first memo in the first administration, he was out after a year. Is there any reason to believe that, that they're looking at every single FOIA request now that goes to agencies or anything?
No, not at all. I think it's just FOIA requests that implicate these imaginary White House equities. Now, what does that mean? There's no official definition for it, but my FOIA insiders who have worked inside the Obama administration as FOIA officers say it's anything that could potentially embarrass the president, his image, his reputation, and also requests from journalists so that they know who's asking the questions and what they're asking, so they can set the tone for press conferences in advance.
So, and this is different from other administrations?
No administration that we know of has ever done anything like this. In fact, my FOIA officer, who's in there now, they told me that under the Bush administration, they usually wanted to know if something that related to the White House was sent out, but they didn't care if it was after the fact. What's different about this administration is they are implementing a policy of prior restraint. They're saying, hey, we not only want the power to review FOIA requests that are coming in, we want the power to redact it. And you're going to say that you did it, but we're actually going to do it for you. And I don't think President Nixon even dreamed of doing that in his darkest days during the Watergate scandal.
Jeffrey, thank you.
Thank you.